Umberto of the 100 Marshes was not your average hippopotamus. He was tall, at least for a hippo, and had a big round belly that wobbled when he tried to walk on his tiptoes. Early in his life, as he wallowed in the muck by the riverbank, he became fascinated by the traveling carriages that sometimes passed nearby. He would lift his head to watch their colorful wagons rumble along, draped with banners boasting of the fantastic, fabulous, fearless circus performer. The name changed from troupe to troupe, but the allure never did. Imagining a parade of acrobats, jugglers, and high flyers soared in his mind. While most hippos focused on sleeping, grazing, and yawning in the sun, Humberto dreamed of stepping onto a circus stage. He first tried to perform for his fellow hippos. The show occurred on a warm afternoon when he lined up half a dozen flat stones by the muddy bank to create a makeshift runway. He trotted onto them with all the poise he could muster, humming a tune and swinging his short, stubby arms as if carrying an invisible baton. His mother, dear Lady Grazaletta, was deeply concerned for her son's safety. "Humberto, dear, hippos are not meant to skip," she would say, but he refused to listen. He jumped and spun, his short tail flicking in comedic arcs behind him. The rest of the hippos chuckled, nudged each other, and declared him silly. Despite their laughter, Umberto believed in his calling as an entertainer. He felt it in every ounce of his hefty body that this was the life for him. Months later, news reached the 100 Marshes that a famous traveling circus planned to perform in a neighboring savannah. An old giraffe had overheard some camel traders mention it. The circus was called the Marveloso Menagerie, headlined by a ringmaster known as the Magnificent Mancini, who was rumored to have a flair for exotic and unexpected acts. It was said that Mancini once let a clumsy donkey attempt a dance routine, only to transform it into a comedic success with the donkey's awkward hoof flips and donkey brays timed to the band's music. Umberto reasoned that if Mancini could do wonders with a donkey, maybe a hippo would be next. Without hesitation, Humberto packed a small bundle of snacks, bid farewell to his mother, and set off to find this circus and earn a spot among the professionals. When Humberto reached the savannah, he realized he had no idea where the performers were camped. He tried to follow the sound of raucous applause or perhaps the music of calliopes echoing across the grasslands, but all he could hear was the distant chirping of insects. Eventually, he stumbled upon a dusty clearing dotted with colorful wagons, each painted in bold blues, reds, and golds. Here, palm trees rustled in the gentle breeze, and cages of animals lined one side from bored-looking lions to restless ostriches. A giant striped tent off to the far right swayed, as though yawning in slumber, awaiting the evening's performance. Umberto soared with excitement. Approaching a wagon plastered with posters of beaming clowns, Humberto found a tall, lanky man with an impressive mustache, clearly more mustache than chin. The figure was wearing scarlet breeches and balancing a top hat on one finger. Humberto swallowed and gathered his courage. "Excuse me, sir," said Humberto, voice low and rumbling. "Are you the magnificent Mancini?" The man spun around and bobbled the top hat before catching it against his chest. With a dramatic flick of his handlebar mustache, he bowed wide-eyed. "You are looking at none other than the marvel of the show, the director of delights, the sultan of surprises, the magnificent Mancini at your service." He then froze, perplexed. "A hippo inquiring about elusive Mancini? This must be my lucky day." Humberto bit his lower lip. "Yes, that's me, Humberto. I would like to join your circus. I can be an acrobat." Mancini stared with puzzlement, then laughter erupted from him. "An acrobat? You, dear friend, appear more suited for, let's say, the strongman act." He attempted to pat Humberto's broad shoulder, but had to reach high. "But if I've learned anything, it's that the most unlikely amusements can dazzle an audience. Let's see what you can do." The ringmaster escorted Humberto to a practice area behind the main tent, where various performers warmed up. A tightrope walker tiptoed gingerly across a rope suspended between two wooden posts. 3 clowns rehearsed a comedic juggling routine. A lion tamer practiced cracking a whip near a bored lion. Humberto swallowed hard. He clutched his dream with all the ferocity he could muster and prepared to demonstrate his acrobatic prowess. such as it was. First on the agenda, a cartwheel. Humberto had seen monkeys do it, even children, so he reasoned it couldn't be too difficult. He hopped forward on one foot, arms outstretched to the sky, then tried to flip his hefty mass end over end. The result was something akin to a spinning top that had run out of momentum. He slammed onto his side with a tremendous thud, sending up a cloud of dust and alarming the nearby lion. Performers scrambled to help him up. Umberto forced a smile. Maybe something else, he coughed. I can also walk on my hands. Sort of. Let me show you. He pressed his front legs forward, attempting to shift his weight onto his forelimbs, but his big belly clearly had other plans. His arms wobbled as he did a precarious inversion, and just when it seemed he might achieve that glorious upside-down posture, his strength gave out. He toppled backward, flattening a neatly stacked pile of juggling pins. The clowns let out a nervous laugh. Mancini winced, but the ringmaster's face was not unkind. "Ed enough, my friend?" the ringmaster asked. "Perhaps the trapeze is next time's challenge, yes?" Humberto slowly regained his bearings, ignoring the throbbing in his hindquarters and the scattered pins. Despite the fiasco, he refused to let doubt creep in. "I'm sorry for the chaos. Let me try the trapeze anyway. I owe it to my dream." The ringmaster gave a curious nod. "Well, that's the spirit of showmanship. Follow me." And so they went inside the large tent. Gigantic steel supports overshadowed them, and high above a single trapeze swing dangled. A slender acrobat was performing, flying gracefully from one pedestal to another, back-arched pointed toes. She soared like a swan, earning gasps from onlookers. Umberto felt like the clumsiest buffalo in the savannah, but then courage found him again. If he failed, at least he would fail spectacularly, like a true showman. He climbed a wobbly ladder to the trapeze platform, the rung nearly buckling beneath his weight. The acrobat on the far platform, a woman named Gazelle, extended the trapeze bar toward him. Humberto grabbed it with both hands and froze. The entire tent seemed so small and far below. If he let go, would he squash half the circus? He squeezed the bar and decided to jump. The moment he swung off the pedestal, Umberto felt an odd rush of delight, as if he were a gray balloon floating through the sky. The ground below blurred. For a brief moment, he was a star. Then gravity reminded him that he was no small balloon. His swing lost momentum quickly, and he realized that he was in no position to grab Giselle's outstretched hands on the return arc. His second swing swooped back to the original platform. In a frantic attempt to land, Umberto released the bar early. He dropped onto the edge of the platform, his wide rear end bouncing him right off. Screams echoed as he plummeted. Mercifully, he landed in the safety net with a massive bounce that catapulted him several feet back into the air and then settled him gently onto the ground. Stunned faces peered at him from every corner of the tent. "Is the hippo all right?" someone asked in hushed tones. Humberto lay there, heart pounding, a swirl of embarrassment, relief, and the faintest spark of triumph swirling in him. "I'm fine," he managed. "That was fun." The watchers broke out in astonished laughter and applause, though Humberto suspected that at least half of it was League of Plaster Limbs relief. That no one was injured by his majestic thud. Moments later, the magnificent Mancini appeared at the edge of the net, arms folded, face illuminated with curiosity. "You, sir, are both a disaster and a marvel. I've never seen such an unexpected performance. You might have something, though. The crowd always loves an underdog, especially a comedic one." Umberto's tufted ears wiggled with hope. "Do you really mean that? Could my clumsiness actually amuse people?" The ringmaster smiled thoughtfully. "In the circus, sometimes the trick is to embrace what sets you apart, rather than hide from it. Stargazers sweeten the night sky with their brilliance. You might sweeten our performance in a similarly unique way." Next came the arduous process of training. Umberto rose with the sun each day to practice climbing the trapeze platform, balancing on a wire just a few feet off the ground for now, and rehearsing comedic timing alongside the clowns. Every part of his body ached with bruises. He accidentally slipped in the ring once and caused the strongman to drop his weights. On another day, while practicing unicycle balancing for comedic effect, he somehow ended up toppling an entire row of stage sets like dominoes. Each mishap fed gossip among the circus staff. "He's unstoppable," some joked. Others were less kind. "He'll destroy the whole show." But Humberto persisted, leaning into the comedic chaos. Slowly but surely, under Muncini's guidance, Humberto realized something magical. Rather than striving to be an elegant acrobat, he could become something of a comedic highlight. They devised a routine where Humberto would try to perform bold acrobatic moves, knocking over props, tangling himself in ribbons, and nearly tumbling through the air. It all looked like creative improvisation, but behind it lay hours of work to ensure no real harm was done. The comedic stumbles were counted in time with the music, the facial expressions coordinated with the clowns, the illusions carefully planned so that the audience believed Umberto was inches away from flattening the ringmaster. And in the final seconds, he would land in the safety net with a triumphant bounce, letting the big top roar with laughter. On opening night in the savannah, Umberto could hardly contain his nerves. The seats were packed, with giraffes craning their long necks forward, curious zebras, flamboyantly dressed ostriches, and even some local hippos from the neighboring swampland. The lights dimmed, the band struck up a playful melody, and a single spotlight followed the magnificent Muncini into the center of the ring. He boomed his welcome to thunderous applause. "Ladies, gentlemen, creatures of the wild, gather your eyes and ears for tonight's spectacle of wonders. The Marveloso Menagerie proudly presents feats of acrobatic amazement, comedic confusion, and more delights than you can imagine. Prepare yourselves to laugh, to gasp, and to cheer for what you shall witness. And now, I give you Humberto, the high-wire Hippo." At the mention of his name, Umberto's heart nearly burst from his chest. He waddled into the ring, forcing his head high, cheeks flushed. The audience giggled. Hippos weren't known for star performances under the big top. Muncini announced that Humberto planned to walk the tightrope, no net beneath him, though in reality, a net was prepared just 2 feet below the rope, cunningly disguised by smoke effects and painted cloth. The rope was about as high as Umberto's belly, and he scooted awkwardly onto it. The comedic music started, and on cue, Humberto teetered with exaggerated gestures, arms flailing, as though trying to keep his balance by swatting invisible flies. The crowd erupted in laughter. Step by step, he inched forward, letting the rope droop precariously under his bulk. Each time it sank perilously, onlookers gasped. Then he pretended to catch his balance at the last second. With a flourish, he reached halfway across. The ringmaster signaled for the next comedic twist. The clowns ran in, squeaking horns, causing Berto to wobble until he dramatically toppled off the side. The entire ring let out a collective gasp, but Humberto landed safely on the hidden net with a bouncing flourish that catapulted him back upright. He executed a forward roll and stood tall, arms extended in a showman's pose. Applause thundered through the tent. The children squealed. The giraffes nearly toppled off their benches, giggling. A few older hippos who had come to see this strange fiasco found themselves roaring with laughter, proud and gobsmacked at the same time, seeing one of their own drawing such warm admiration. Next, Humberto attempted a trapeze routine. He climbed a short ladder, took hold of a trapeze bar secured just high enough to convince the audience of its danger, and soared forward. He spun in an awkward circle, losing his grip and falling spectacularly into a waiting foam pit disguised as a colorful box of props. On cue, ribbons erupted from the box, followed by confetti cannons timed to his impact, a flourish that made it appear as if sparkles burst wherever Humberto crashed. The comedic effect was uproarious. The entire crowd was left gasping for breath, laughter echoing through the tent. When he emerged, covered in ribbons and glitter, Humberto gave an exaggerated bow, the band played a jaunty tune, the ringmaster clapped so hard his mustache quivered. And to the biggest surprise of all, Giselle the trapeze artist then floated down on a wire, swirling in ribbons. To congratulate him, she gave his cheek a playful pat, acknowledging that he had turned a simple stunt into a performance that stole the show. It was the best night of Umberto's life. After the final bow, he soaked in the applause that seemed to thunder in his ears. He couldn't stop smiling, even when he returned behind the curtain. Performers gathered around him, giving him friendly jabs, telling him how well he'd done. The lions seemed less bored for once, or at least Humberto imagined so, and Moncini, sporting a grin that nearly split his face, placed a grand top hat on Humberto's head. "Well done, my friend," he said, tipping it back. "You will be the star comedic act of the Marveloso Menagerie." As the weeks rolled on, Humberto's act became a staple of the circus. They traveled from savannah to forest, then to smaller towns near the edges of the great desert. Each time, Umberto refined the comedic stunts. Sometimes he would attempt to jump through burning hoops, hopelessly tangling himself in them, only to emerge soot-smudged yet safe, courtesy of well-prepared illusions. Other times he pretended to join the strongman's routine, but snapped the barbell in half when he tried to lift it, revealing that it was cleverly sawed and rigged to break at the slightest tug. The crowds adored the spectacle of a hippo so visibly out of his element, yet so passionately trying to be a star. Even Umberto's mother came to see him perform one evening when the circus visited a region near the 100 Marshes. Lady Graysletta arrived wearing a small straw hat, gazing fearfully at her son's high-wire attempts, but when she saw how gracefully he turned his blunders into comedic gold, she teared up with pride, amid peals of laughter from the audience. She had always feared for his safety, but seeing Humberto glimmer under the spotlight tugged at her heart. She waddled to him backstage and placed a gentle kiss on his bruised cheek. "You are a star, my dear one," she whispered, and Humberto nearly cried tears of joy. Despite his success, Humberto still felt an itch of ambition. Could he do a real high-wire walk? Truly suspended 50 feet above the ground. The ringmaster insisted it was unnecessary. The comedic vantage was enough for the show's success. But Umberto dreamed of proving to himself that he could do it. He wanted to stand up there, overshadow his fear, and show he was not only a clumsy comedic routine. Late nights after performances, when everyone else was asleep, he tiptoed into the tent, set up the wire at a higher level, and practiced. He wore a safety harness rigged to a rope. Each time, step by quivering step, he advanced. The higher he raised the wire, the stronger his determination grew. One night, as the circus approached a grand performance at a large city on the savannah's outskirts, Humberto decided it was time. With the ringmaster absent preoccupied with finalizing details for the big show, Humberto enlisted a few curious clowns to help him rig the wire. Under dim lamplight, they hoisted the rope high above the center of the ring. The clowns tried half-heartedly to talk him out of it. "Is this wise? Magnificent Moncini might banish us to cleaning zebra stalls for this." But Humberto's determination swayed them. They strapped on his harness and offered him a balancing pole that was almost as tall as he was. Never had Humberto's belly felt so jittery. He climbed the ladder, rung by rung, until he reached the small platform at the top. Below, the clowns hovered in fearful anticipation. Gripping the pole, Humberto stepped onto the taut wire. It swayed gently, as though mocking him, telling him only a bird or a monkey had any business being up there. But Humberto took a breath. He placed one broad foot in front of the other, knees shaking, ears parted. Slowly, excruciatingly, he shuffled forward. His heart hammered against his ribcage, yet the slowness of his progress gave him time to steady his nerves. Halfway across, a breeze blew, forcing him to pause and cling to his balancing pole. He wobbled dangerously, but the harness kept him from toppling. Only a few more steps, he told himself. Only a few more steps. That was when a swirl of dust drifted in from one of the tent flaps. It caught Humberto's nose. He hurriedly tried to hold back the involuntary spasm rising in his sinuses, but it was no use. He sneezed, a thunderous and wild sneeze that shook his entire body as if a miniature hurricane had exploded from his nostrils. It knocked him off balance and he teetered sideways. The wire snapped free in an instant. Perhaps the tension was poorly secured, or the harness rigging had placed too much strain. A loud twang roared through the tent, and Humberto, still in the harness, swung and spun, the rope mooring him to the safety rigging overhead. The clowns shrieked in terror. Humberto's body slammed into the side of the ring, tangling in the harness lines. He dangled upside down, spinning in circles, a giant hippopotamus payata. Frantic voices echoed in the tent. "Help him! Get him down safely!" The wide-eyed clowns scrambled for a ladder, but Humberto was spinning too far out of reach. His harness threatened to slip free from the broken wire anchor. Then there came the sound of hurried footsteps. The magnificent Muncini, along with several stagehands, burst into the tent, confusion and concern etched across their faces. Muncini whirled around, barking orders to bring a safety mattress, calling for the strong man to help with the harness. In a chaotic flurry, they positioned a massive crash mat beneath Umberto just as the harness tore loose. Down he plummeted, a bundle of confusion, relief, and comedic timing right into the waiting cushion. The entire group rushed forward. Muncini hovered over him. "Humberto, what were you doing? Are you all right?" Humberto blinked up at him, heart still pounding. I wanted to test my real skill, to see if I could truly do a high-wire walk without comedic stumbles," he swallowed. "And perhaps I let my ambition get the better of me." Muncini exhaled a long sigh, then cracked the smallest of smiles. "It's quite a stunt to attempt on your own. Look, dear friend, I appreciate your dedication, but the circus is about bringing joy, not risking your life for a dangerous dream. You already bring laughter. The crowds adore you. You've found your place more solidly than any gracile acrobat could. Why push it?" Humberto sat up, limbs still trembling. "Because I feel something's missing," he admitted. "People laugh, which is wonderful, but part of me longs to surprise them by actually conquering the wire, even if just once." The ringmaster rubbed his chin. At length, he nodded. "Then let's do it right. We'll practice under safe conditions, with the correct rigging and professional help. No secrets. If we can build a real high-wire routine that also includes your comedic style, imagine how sensational that could be. But no more late-night stunts alone. Deal?" Umberto smiled, broad enough to illuminate the tent. "Deal." So began a new phase in Umberto's training. Under Muncini's supervision, the top supports and anchors were properly reinforced. The famed Giselle lent him tips on posture and breath control. The strong man taught him simple exercises to strengthen his core and arms, making the balancing pole more manageable. The entire circus rallied behind him, ensuring he had the best possible chance of success. Along the way, they integrated comedic touches, like a clown who'd appear on a neighboring wire with a water balloon, or a pretend goose that would fly by squawking. These bits would cause Umberto to wobble, sending the audience into fits of laughter, but then he'd regain composure, pressing on with real skill. When the appointed evening arrived, the big tent was filled again, and the hush of anticipation was almost tangible. Muncini's voice beckoned the crowd. "Tonight, behold the unimaginable. Our beloved comedic star Umberto will attempt to triumph over the high wire in both body and spirit." Spotlights swept up to a high platform where Humberto stood. A hush fell. The ringmaster gave him a nod. Humberto nodded back, took the balancing pole, and stepped out onto the wire. This time many feet above the ground. An audible gasp rippled through the audience. The wire quivered under his weight. Step by step he advanced, comedic flair in the form of an occasional uncertain wobble, eliciting scattered laughter. Some of the familiar clown antics commenced on nearby wires, but this time, Humberto did not topple. He swayed, dramatically clutched the pole as if about to tumble, but steadied himself. Step after step, he almost glided forward. The crowd leaned forward in disbelief. Was the big fellow actually doing it? 2/3 of the way across, a playful clown soared by on a zip line, squeaking a horn. Humberto feigned alarm, arms flailing to comedic effect. The crowd roared with laughter. Then, with a tiny grin, he regained perfect balance. He inched forward. More laughter, more applause, hearts pounding. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he reached the opposite platform. There was a beat of silence, and then the entire tent erupted in the loudest standing ovation Humberto had ever heard. Bows, confetti, whoops of delight echoed across the stands. Lady Grazaletta blew a kiss from the front row, tears staining her gray cheeks. Umberto stood on the platform, chest heaving, eyes shining with tears of triumph. He'd done it. He hadn't abandoned his comedic persona. He'd used it to enhance the show, but he had proven his ability to truly walk the wire. When he bowed, his belly bobbed up and down, and the thunder of applause redoubled. Beneath the swirling lights, he spotted Mancini, smiling, Giselle applauding with her ribbons, and the clowns tossing confetti in salvos. He felt a rush of belonging, something he'd long yearned for. Afterward, backstage, the circus troupe smothered him with embraces and hearty slaps on the back. Mancini removed his own top hat and placed it on Humberto's head with a flourish. "You, Humberto, are the star of tonight's show," he declared, "and from now on, you shall be known not only as our comedic act, but also as an acrobat who overcame the odds." Umberto could only grin from ear to ear. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I owe it all to everyone who believed in me, even when I was supposed to be too big, too clumsy, or too out of place." Mancini shook his head, mustache dancing. "Nonsense, dear boy. I shouldn't have encouraged you to only remain comedic. This final performance showcased your heart, your determination, and that's what captivates audiences." A final wave of applause from outside brushed against the tent walls like a warm breeze. Humberto closed his eyes, letting the sound fill him with a sense of wonder and gratitude. He had found his calling. A clumsy giant whose stumbles made the world laugh, and whose unwavering resolve made them gasp. In a space that belonged to lithe gymnasts and nimble contortionists, this enormous hippo had carved his own place. His circus dreams now stood firmly in balance, both comedic and courageous. With the cheers of the crowd in his ears, Umberto wandered back to prepare for the curtain call, his heart singing. The 100 Marshes seemed far away, yet closer than ever, because now he realized his love for spectacle and silliness had taken him on a journey he'd never forget. Sure, the path was lined with toppled props and bruised behinds, but it also sparkled with jokes, confetti, and heartfelt applause. And for the first time in his bulky, big-footed life, Umberto the Hippo felt as graceful as a gazelle. He picked up a stray confetti streamer, smiled at the reflection of his glitter-dappled face in a small mirror, and lumbered on to join the final bow. Somewhere above, the high wire still hung, swaying gently in the afterglow of the spotlights, a testament to dreams that dared to defy every expectation.